Hi, I'm Joanne Banko, author, designer, and online educator at letsgosew.com. I want to show you today a dress, doubles as a swimsuit cover-up, so you can wear this just about anywhere. It is trimmed with stitches that are very special. We stitched this from a cover hem machine. So I'm going to tell you all about that and give you all the tips and tricks for that. First of all, let me talk a little bit about the pattern. Every great garment starts with a pattern. With something like this, if you're going to add decoration, either through the cover hem stitching or through trims, I'll talk about that just a little bit in a minute, you want to pretty much pick something that's relatively plain to start with, because you want the decoration to really shine. And if you have too many details on your garment, too many seams, too many pieces and parts to it, it's going to make it more difficult to place those trims. So start with something simple. I selected a pattern, just a pullover with cut-on sleeves. Makes it really easy to construct once you've done the decorative stitching. But this particular pattern was designed for woven fabrics. Maybe you've come across that from time to time where you want to use a knit for a woven or a woven for a knit, and there are times when you can make some changes, particularly if it's a loose-fitting garment, and this one is, so it's got a lot of extra ease in it. So if we make it from a knit, we might want to size it down, just maybe one size. That'll make it just with a little bit more of a trim fit. If you know you're going to wear it completely as a swimsuit cover-up, then go ahead and make a little bit larger size. But why get stuck with a t-shirt when you make something really dressier like this? So let's talk a little bit about trim. Now, when I show you the cover hem technique, it really mimics trim. But if you don't have that option, you can certainly purchase trims to match. You can even consider using decorative stitches on your sewing machine. Just be sure you test them out with knits. Sometimes you need to add some extra stabilizer. There are some good options for that. We'll give you some tips for that in the download that goes along with the TV show. But when you pick trims, pick something that's lightweight and something that's going to be soft so it doesn't affect the drape of your knit, and above all, make sure it's washable. I've got mine marked here, circled. It is absolutely washable. I'm still going to check it for color fast, because if you're adding a deep color to a lighter color like I did here, you want to make sure that trim doesn't cause any ill effects on there. So make sure you do that. But that is certainly an option. The cover hem, that is a really, really unique machine. You're going to see me stitch on it in just a minute, but I've got some samples here to show you, because cover hem machines generally come in two forms. Some cover hem machines just simply make the loops on one side and looks like a top stitch on the other. Then there are cover hem machines that have a top cover hem and a bottom cover hem. So it's very commonly seen in ready-to-wear in athletic clothes and leisure wear. It's a really, really great stitch. One of the beautiful things about it is the stretchability and the flexibility. So it's really great for those performance fabrics. Lots of stretch and a lot of decorative looking too. Normally it's used for top stitching hems and a variety of things like that. You can see I went a little bit outside the box and used it as a trim. So when you're thinking about a cover hem machine, you're going to look at it almost like you do a serger. It's a dedicated machine set aside for doing special stitches. And with this stitch, it really is all about the stretchability and all about being able to top stitch to create that look. So how did I design my outfit? Again, a great garment always starts with a design. Well, I like to play around sometimes. So the first thing that I did was to play around with my design. I cut from pattern tracing cloth an exact duplicate of my skirt, and then I used a marker, and I was kind of trying some little different diamond effect, and then I settled on a little bit of a different variation, which was this one right here. So let me pull this one out of the way and spread this out so that you can see it. So there you go. I decided to do a little bit of a star effect. And then on the bodice area, what I did is I trimmed the facing, which normally would be flipped to the inside and hidden and flipped it to the outside. I'm going to show you that in just a minute too. So we want to mark for this. If we look at this particular sample, I'm going to flip it over and you're going to see that this is a cover hem that has cover hem on one side and triple stitch on the other side. So this is actually my wrong side and this is my right side. Why is that? Just because I chose it that way. You can make it either side you want to. But because my cover hem stitch with the loops forms from the bottom side of the machine, that meant that I needed to mark my fabric from the wrong side. So I did that, just simply used a chalk marker. I love these chalk markers, and a ruler. Just make sure you work from end to end and don't rub your fabric too hard because you don't want to stretch it out and distort it. But I'm just going to do just a simple little X here. Okay, so I've got that marked. And I like to mark everything all at once so I'm good to go and ready to sew when I get over to that machine. I got one extra one there. We'll just ignore that a little bit. Just darken that just a little bit. Okay, and let's switch over to the machine so I can show you this great stitch. You're going to notice, first of all, we've got multiple threads on here. This machine can be set up in a variety of different ways. I am maximizing the use of all 3 needles and then using one looper so that I have that loopy stitch on the bottom and a triple stitch that's forming on the top. But remember, I marked on the wrong side so that my loopy stitch is going to show up on then the right side of my fabric. Now you may be wondering, why do I have this little piece of fabric in here? Well, the cover hem can be pulled off and pulled free, but it really forms completely different from a sewing machine stitch. So I call this a joiner cloth, and I like to cut a piece of scrap fabric about the length of my presser foot so that you'll see once I feed this in, I'm holding my foot control here, I'm able to simply get my fabric right under that foot so that as I stitch, I never go off of fabric. So it stays right on the fabric and I can follow right along that center line with my marking. I do have differential feed on this machine, so if my knit started to get a little bit ripply, I can alter that and counteract that. But when I get to the end of this, I'm going to go ahead and clip off that little joining piece, and I'm going to use it on the opposite end here to get me off of this. So I just simply lightly lift that presser foot, and there you go. So I've got a beautiful, beautiful loopy stitch, and I'm able to again get out of this and go right along and do that second line of stitching. So you're the designer, you're in control. You decide where and how you want to stitch that, and I think you might agree, this kind of gives a real look of almost a mock trim on the opposite side of the fabric. And then you maintain that stretch, you maintain the drape of your fabric. So we'll get just to the end of here. Okay, and I'm finished with that. So let's take a look at this. Remember, this is the stitch that you see very often in ready-to-wear, on sportswear, leisure wear, all of those great activewear garments. So this triple straight stitch is actually on the top side, but the loops, that beautiful cover hem stitch, is on the opposite side, which is what I used for my trim. So very neat, very stretchy, very beautiful stitch. This is what you find on those types of garments. So I've got a bodice here. Let me show you this. I went ahead and trimmed my facing piece with that same technique, just simply stitching from the wrong side. Normally your facing would be sewn right sides together, flip to the inside, hidden on your garment. What I chose to do is use that as a design element. So after I did my decorative stitching, I simply sewed with my right side of my facing against the wrong side of my garment, stitched all around that neckline. Get that so that it looks just like you would see that normally stitched. And then what I did is I took that facing and flipped it to the right side. course, I do a little bit of clipping, a little bit of trimming, a little bit of pressing to make that nice and neat, but I think you get the picture and you see how that's turned. And then I simply used a straight stitch on my machine. I stitched right through the center of that cover hem stitch, right through those loops, and anchored that facing down so it was nice and smooth and flat, and turned that into a design element. All right, let's look at the dress again, and you see this dress has pockets, which really, really elevates it into something very, very wearable. But if you've ever done pockets on a knit, you may be aware that it could be just a little bit bulky. So here's a tip for you. Cut your pocket pieces from lining fabric and then add a little bit of strip of fabric. So that covers up the edge area, which is right here where we're going to see that, and then the lining part is hidden, but it's nice and thin and smooth. So how about that belt? Well, if you want a little more casual look, simply remove that belt. We've got that easy pull-on elastic waist, and that belt is a beautiful design in and of itself. So take a look at this. This is known as like an obi sash, and this can be worn a couple different ways. Tied in the back was fine, but it can also be wrapped around the front, and you see I've got that beautiful looping stitch on one side. I just simply put wrong sides together and stitched that, and then trimmed it real close so that it's nice and even. So you've seen a variety of different design elements on this today, and visit the website. You'll find complete instructions. We'll show you step by step so that you can make your own beautiful dress.